Oh, look at that. Hey everyone, welcome back to DIY Homestead Projects channel. My name is Bruce. Bestarc got a hold of me and asked me if I'd be interested in having a look at their plasma cutter machine. So I'd like to thank Bestarc for sending out this plasma cutter so I can make this test and review video just for you. So they sent me this machine. They have several different models, and supposedly they're coming out with a MIG machine in December of 2023. So I'll be interested in that too. If they send one to me, I'll definitely do a review on it. So the one that they sent me was a BTC500DP. So this one has the pilot arc. This is the version 3. This one is a dual voltage 50 amp plasma cutter. So I've seen a lot of reviews on some of their machines and they seem to be pretty impressive. So I was excited to have a look at it. Let's open it up. I'll show you what it comes with. And then we'll get it set up and do some test cuts with it. All right, it came really well packed. Nice foam packaging, so there's no movement inside the box. It came undamaged as far as I can tell. See, they all come with an extra piece of air hose if you want to connect to the machine that way. And it also has, which I'll show you here in a minute, a quick connect fitting already on the machine. And it looks like the air dryer is also permanently already installed on the machine. So there's nothing to put together with this unless you're going to use this type of hose. So I won't be using it. I'm just going to use a quick connect, connect it to my air compressor hose. Pretty standard looking ground clamp. An adapter to convert from 220 or 240 to 110 or 120. And this is set up real nice. On the machine, they've got it wired with the 240, 220 plug. So that's the correct way, in my opinion, to do the adapter where you're going from a 220. If you're doing 220, you just plug the machine directly into your outlet. You're going to adapt if you're going to a 110 or 120 plug. A little bit of Teflon tape, couple extra tips and electrodes, as well as hose clamps for the air hose. Instruction booklet. And then the torch. And this is an AG60 torch with the pilot arc, AG60P. Real nice looking torch. It's got your little safety guard on there. This will kind of help keep your standoff. Since this is a non-touch or a pilot arc machine, you don't want to contact your material with the tip. It'll make your tips last longer this way. I don't know how long it is, 10 or 12 feet maybe. Oh, and there was a little wrench in here to help with changing out the consumables on the torch. All right, looking at the back of the machine, the Bestarc 50 amp plasma cutter with pilot arc. As I mentioned, you've got the cord all wired for the 220 or 240 volt. You've got the air separator with an air in adapter already on there for a quick connect. And I suppose you could remove that if you were going to use the air hose, if you wanted to put a spline fitting on here. Air release on the bottom, fan, and then the on-off switch is on the back. Feels like a pretty nice solid machine. And it literally came unscratched. There's no dents, no scratch. It's perfect. Now looking at the front of the machine, you've got this plug in right down here where your plasma torch connects. And then a plug here for the connector on the torch. This is for the pilot arc connection. And then the grounding clamp. I do like the fact that they've got the air separator on the back, but then they've got the regulator control on the front. Along with the gauge for the air pressure on the front. It's clearly written here on 110 volt 20 to 40 psi and on 220 volt 30 to 60 psi. So that's kind of handy. You've got an air test button, cut, 2T, so it'll only cut while you're holding the trigger, and then 4T, you can press the trigger to start the cut, and when the cut's finished, press the trigger again and it'll stop cutting. And then PT, I forgot what it actually stands for, but it's your post-flow, post-torch, post-flow of air pressure after the arc is stopped, how long the airflow continues in order to cool the tip and save your consumables in the torch. And if I remember right, we'll turn it on here in a minute, I think you can actually set the time between 3 seconds and 15 seconds on the post airflow. A fan light, a work light, and then an overcurrent light. Let's turn it on and just check out some of those features real quick before we set it up and start to cut with it. Okay, I've got it plugged in, and I'm going to be doing all my cutting in this video on 240 volt power, input power. It cuts better on 240 volts, and if you have it available, I suggest that you use it. Why not, right? I've seen videos where they cut real well on a 110 power source, but you'll be limited to thickness, material thickness, as well as 35 amps max cutting power. Otherwise, if you're on 240, you can go up to 50 amps cutting power. So this is the first power on with this machine. And there it is. Now I don't hear a fan, and there's no light showing that the fan is on. So the fan is off. That's nice. This must have a temperature controlled fan, which we'll explore later when I start cutting with it. But that's a feature that I really, really like, especially for the price of this unit. I'll put some Amazon links for this machine in the description, but you could check out their Amazon website and find all the other products that they offer. This one specifically was the BTC500DP, and this is Generation 3 version. All right, so we've got air and cut. If you have the air connected, you can press that to let the air flow through the torch, and you can set your flow and then turn it off to actually cut. 2T, 4T, and the post flow time. So 3 seconds to 15. I'll probably set mine around 5. And that's it. It's real simple, nothing to assemble. You just connect your air to the back, connect your torch, the switch, and the ground clamp, and you're ready to cut. So I'm going to get it all set up, and we'll gather up a few scrap pieces, and we'll see how it does. So I'm looking through the manual, which is pretty decent, by the way. It's got some pretty good info in it. It's showing either on 220 or 110, anywhere from 40 to 70 PSI max. So I'm going to start out with some real thin stuff, some, I don't know, 22 or 20 or 22 gauge, some galvanized edging. Pretty thin. I'll show it to you here in a second. So I'm going to start out at 40 PSI. And if you look here on the gauge, it's set at 40 PSI. But when you turn the machine on, and then when you hit air, it'll drop down because it's going to have an actual flow rate going on. So let's do the air. It'll drop down and I'll adjust it. So there we set it at 40, and it actually went up to about 45 or 48 is where it's set, but I'm getting 40 on the flow. So that's where we'll start, and then we can go clear up to 70 max. Just doing that little test, now I got the fan turned on. It's actually pretty quiet, but it didn't take much to turn the fan on, and it's actually indicating that the fan is on. Of course, I'm plugged into 240 volts or 220, 30 amp circuit. This looks like a 1.0. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not, but 1.0 tip in here. I haven't looked to see what the other sizes are, but this one looks pretty tiny. We'll go with that one to start with anyway. Well, here's a look at what I'll be cutting. Some galvanized edging for your lawn edging. That's about 1 millimeter in thickness. A little bit thick here on the end here, but we'll do a few cuts on that to start with. Then a piece of an old bed frame. That's probably double thickness there, so that's about 1/8 of an inch or so, and the two combined. Now this has paint on it and some rust, so we'll see how well the Pilot Arc does with dealing with that paint. Then I've got a piece of 3/16 angle iron, all rusty and got even maybe some concrete on it and some paint. So that's a pretty good test. Then I got a piece of rebar here, 7/8 maybe. I've cut this before with a different plasma cutter. We'll try that. And then I got a concrete stake here, and it's probably a 1/2 inch, 5/8. Somewhere in that area, 5/8 on the concrete stake. I'm also going to be using my Benchmark Abrasives grinder hood. I actually really like this hood. It's super comfortable, secure on your head, and this one has the optional flip-up visor. So you don't even have to lift up the hood, which is easy enough, but you can lift up the visor so you can see what you're doing and then just flip it back down to go ahead and cut. And I think this is a number 5 on this tint, if I remember right. Let me look. Yeah, 5. Anyway, that's what I'll be doing. My Fox welding gloves so I don't burn myself. Let's get it set up and let's cut some stuff. First cut, we're set up on this piece of galvanized edging. It's probably 22 gauge or so. Real thin sheet metal. And I've got the machine set at 40 PSI and 20 amps. So let me hook that ground to the material and we'll get this first cut and see what happens. There's the first cut with the Bestarc BTC500DP Plasma Cutter with Pilot Arc. And it turned out pretty clean. This top edge here. Went right through that little thin piece of material. Set at 20 amps and 40 PSI. So we'll move up to the 1/8 inch and we'll go just a little bit. We'll crank it up to 25 amps. We'll stay on 40 PSI for this painted old bed frame material. Approximately 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, well that made it through. Perhaps this isn't the best piece of material to test on. It's just hard to get a flat surface to run the torch so I get an even ride height across there, but it cut through that with no problem. And I got quite a bit of dross because I think I was going too slow, but here's a look at the cuts. The paint seemed to be no issue whatsoever. All right, let's move on to something else. Let's try the 3/16 inch angle iron next. We'll use the same settings. 30 amps. Now let's go to 40 amps. I think I'm going to move that up to 50 psi. 40 amps, 50 psi on the 3/16 inch angle iron. There is some dross on the bottom of it there, but other than the shaky hands, the cut actually went through pretty clean, pretty nice. I might be able to turn the amperage down a little bit for this thickness of material, but it went through there pretty good. All right, let's set up and try the concrete stake. And I think I'll just keep on the same settings. 50 psi and 40 amps for the concrete stake. Right, that went through there pretty nice. This was 5/8, close to a 1/2 inch concrete stake. There's the cut. Not too bad. That was at 40 amps and 50 psi. Now I'm going to crank the machine to full power, and then we'll switch over to the 7/8 inch rebar. Let's go to 50. And 70 on the PSI. Oh, look at that. All right, it made it through. This is about 22 millimeters, 20 to 22 millimeters, so it's way thicker than the rating of the machine. This Bestarc 50 amp machine is rated for 12 millimeters. on 220 volt supply, and on a 110 volt supply it's rated for 10 millimeters. But with a little patience, set on the highest settings, you can get through 7/8 or almost 1 inch, and that's actually not a bad cut. Went through there pretty good. First one I didn't make it all the way through, missed a little piece there at the bottom, so I tried it again and it cut it right off. A little better technique on the second one, so technique has a lot to do with it as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video of the Bestarc BTC500DP, which is a plasma cutter that has pilot arc by Bestarc. I'm really impressed with the machine. I can't complain about it. I think it's a pretty good machine for the money. I'll leave links in the descriptions if you're interested in checking it out. If you enjoy this kind of video and this kind of content, I appreciate you give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And if you'll click that video on the screen now, you can see another one of my DIY welding and fabrication videos. We'll see you over there.